The agenda for today's event, Leadership Matters for a Thriving Economy and Social Wellbeing, Ways Forward to Build ECD Business Partnerships. This event is divided into two parts, part one and part two. Um, During the first part, you'll be hearing some welcoming remarks from our CEO, Diane Whitehead, and then we're going to have a couple of leadership conversations with two of our guests, Jim Sperlino and Shashank Kare. And then in the second part, part two, this is when you all will have an opportunity to engage and reflect and discuss and share and learn from each other. And so we're looking forward to that piece. Just some housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with registered participants. We ask that you keep your audio on mute and that you use the chat feature, which is available to you as we share resources, if you have any questions, and any other discussion that will happen throughout the event. There will be dedicated time for questions after the featured speaker conversations. You all are very welcomed and important participants, but we will be highlighting a few of us here today. Of course, our President and CEO, Diane Whitehead of Childhood Education International, Sarah Watson, Director of Center for Business Champions, Jim Sperlino, CEO of Sperlino Materials, and Shashank Kare, Manager of Education and ECCD of the HCL Foundation in India. I'm going to now pass it over to Diane Whitehead with welcoming comments.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's so nice to be here with you today. So thank you for joining in. This is a follow-on conversation to the global forum that we had in April, which was talking again about ECD, early childhood development, and sometimes we talk about ECCE, early childhood care and education as well. And how we can look at business partnerships to support the development of young children. So we're excited to have you here. We have over, I think, 60 countries represented, and we had about 300, close to 300 registrants. So that's really exciting. We know this is an important topic for everyone. So there are different perspectives that we're going to take a look at. And we have people here who are represented from NGOs, civil society, academia, corporate sector, government, philanthropy, international organizations, and United Nations agencies. So you are all welcome. It's wonderful to have such a diverse representation from many, many different sectors. So a little bit about CE International. CE International is a global organization. We do work in the international development space, focused on young children, their learning, their development, their well-being, but we provide global consulting services as well that enhances the early childhood development services that are happening locally, or helping with national governments as well as they develop policies or systems to be able to deliver these services. And I'm going to tell you a little bit as well about the Center for Business Champions. The Center for Business Champions is a center of CE International, and it really looks at how to support this partnership between business leaders and early childhood development leaders around the world. And we really do want to build these lasting, effective partnerships where we can bring these two sectors together to have those important conversations about what is happening with children in every country. Okay, so these partnerships really do do contribute to a productive current and future workforce and economy. So let's all keep that in mind. So moving the Global Forum conversation forward, many of you participated in the Global Forum on investing in early childhood last April. It was hosted by the CBC, and we did this in collaboration with a supporting partner of ECDAN and other wonderful organizations and experts. And during that event, we highlighted the business case for investment in ECD, citing the neuroscience and the economic investment. We also offered practical strategies that could be supported by successful models from around the world that demonstrate collective action and strategic business engagement that delivers value and transformative impact. We discussed the importance of adaptable partnerships and innovative financing models across contexts, from implementing child-friendly work policies to developing comprehensive CSR, corporate social responsibility, and ESG, environment, social, and government strategies to influence public policy. The underpinning takeaway from the Global Forum was really this need to elevate leadership. We know that we can't move any of this forward unless we really start to think about what type of leaders are going to move forward the agenda for partnerships with early childhood development and with business leaders. Leadership, we traditionally think of as the process of influencing and mobilizing others towards achieving a shared vision or common goals. Transformational leadership really practices vision setting, motivating, and inspiring others, and building those systems that can enable collective success. So, leadership is incredibly important all the way round, and transformative leadership particularly important to make sure that we are significantly transforming the way that we think, the way that we build systems, and the way that we deliver services. So why now? Why is leadership for early childhood important? Many countries, as we know, underfund certainly ECCE, early childhood care and education, and ECD as well. But particularly when we look at the education side of this, it's pretty poor showing, even though evidence shows that returns on early childhood investments are among the highest across the lifespan. Despite this strong evidence on the importance of the early years, pre-primary education gets the smallest share of international education aid compared to primary, secondary, or higher education, often less than 2%. Strong leadership in communities and nations, particularly transformative leadership from both sides, the early childhood sector and the leadership sector, are really important. Elevated leadership, those skills, those mindsets, those approaches that are futures and systems oriented really inspire the building of relationship across sectors beyond those traditional networks and are needed now more than ever, especially when we see these shrinking budgets, as we've alluded to, changes happening in the global environment for financing the young children and their development, and also changes happening nationally and on very local levels. With a shared alignment of mutual interest, ECD and business leaders can work together for greater investment in children and families. So how can we work together? Well, at the CBC, Center for Business Champions, we put together a holistic framework. And this really illustrates the way that varied collaboration between the two sectors requires rethinking our traditional approaches, what we sometimes call thinking outside of the box. We'd like to clarify that we're not talking about, that we are talking about actually collaborating with the business sector that stands outside of the education sector. So we're not talking about sort of privatization of education, private childcare, and things like that. We're talking about, when we're talking about partnerships with business, we're talking about partnerships directly with businesses who may not be involved in early childhood development. And we're listening to you. When you registered, you had to write down a few key themes that you wanted to hear about. We've certainly recorded those and can explore those together. Strengthening leadership and training was something you highlighted, addressing program implementation challenges, involving communities and families, influencing supportive policies, and CSR, again, corporate social responsibility commitments. So, although we won't be able to answer all your questions in today's session, thank you so much for responding on your registration form. We have gathered all that information and we're taking a look at how we can shape future events for the CBC and just get information out to you. If you've registered for these events, the Global Forum of this follow-on, we'll certainly be in connection with you and can send information directly to you. So, what were some of the thematic questions when we look at this sort of thematically? What happens with those? We've got the collaboration with business. What's the best way for ECD and businesses to work together? Funding and investment. How can we frame the value of investing in early childhood? Education and training. What leadership skills and trainings are really needed? What opportunities do we have to help to educate ECD professionals and business leaders to bring them together? Community engagement. How can we get families and communities included in our ECD and business partnerships? And policy and advocacy. What strategies can influence stronger government and CSR policies that really prioritize children and families and early childhood development, early childhood care, early childhood education? How do we do this? So I'm really happy that you're here with us today. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have all of you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Yvette Murphy, who is our Senior Global Education Advisor at CE International. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Diane, for your welcoming words and framing our conversation for today. As Diane said, the underpinning message takeaway is that from our global forum in this past April is that leadership matters. And what I'm highlighting for you in this slide is some of the leadership themes that came out from the global forum. And that really will help us build upon these themes is what we'll be building upon today. So building strong communication and relationship building skills, including consensus building and negotiation, and that foster trust and mutual understanding. Advocating for economic and social interests through an asset-based approach that values diverse expertise and resources. Strengthening systems leadership competencies to inspire creative, strategic thinking that brings business and the social sector together. Adapting to a changing economic and development landscape by creating innovative solutions for investing in children and future workforce. And perhaps most importantly, practicing compassion in shaping a future where children thrive, families are supported, and economies and societies grow together. It's so wonderful to see so many of you saying hello in the chat and having so many participants with us today. I think we all can relate to the fact that, we're all increasingly feeling, the importance for communication and relationship building is so important in a world where the way we're communicating is often segmented and siloed, and the ways in which we work are. I know that, we all understand that feeling of not being siloed and not working together. We are more, as Diane was saying, it's so important that we're able to reach across and work across sectors, being able to bring on that transformative leadership approach um, that allows us to work in creative ways and consider our our systems and our systems skills and being able to adapt in a very changing and dynamic world. So with that, I'm going to pass it on. We're going to start our leadership conversation, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to um, Sarah. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and share a poll. We have a poll for all of you to start off. So um, we're going to have you consider what you're bringing today, your leadership strengths and your areas to improve. So there's two questions here. Um, we'd ask, and you can select more than one. Select all the leadership qualities that reflect your strengths as a leader in building business partnerships. And conversely, where are the areas that you would like to improve as a leader in building business partnerships? And we'll give you a minute to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Let's see. Okay, great. It's wonderful. So in terms of strengths, it seems like many of you have a strong vision rooted in your community, um, and have a lot of strong communication and storytelling skills. Let's see where people are feeling they need to work on. So yeah, strategic thinking in resource constrained settings. We hear that again, as Diane was saying, with shrinking development budgets, lack of resources in many countries, particularly for ECD, this is a problem. And confidence is another one in there. So hopefully when you hear the conversations today, you'll be inspired and feel a little bit more confident that these types of partnerships and relationships are possible. So thanks so much for um, participating in that. I'm going to stop sharing, and now I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Sarah Watson. Thanks so much.
Great. I am so excited to see all of you and the interest in this topic. I'm the director of the Center for Business Champions and have spent the last 25 years or so helping to build bridges between the business and early childhood sectors. I have heard every question, I have heard every dilemma, I have heard every problem that you might have, and we are very excited to help you fix those problems and build wonderful partnerships with each other. I would love to bring on Jim Sperlino. If you could go ahead and ping him. Yay, yay. Hey, Jim.
Good
I'm
morning.
also delighted to introduce you to one of my favorite people in the whole world, and he is the biggest business champion for early childhood that you could possibly ask for. Those of you who have done our trainings know that we often recommend finding, one or two of those people who are very special, who will help you build this partnership. And Jim is one of those people. He didn't just respond when I asked him to testify in front of his state legislators or sign an op-ed, but he would give me advice on here's the best way to pitch early childhood as a business issue. So he's just been invaluable. He, not surprisingly, you will hear that he has been a leader in 3 different sectors: in business, in politics, and in the NGO sector. He's the founder and CEO of Sperlino Materials, a nationally recognized supplier of construction materials in the United States. He has served in leadership roles on the board as a board of directors of organizations such as the National Mixed Ready Concrete Association, Every Child Succeeds, Council for Strong America, Prenatal to 3 Policy Impact Center, and Ohio Kids First. He's also written 2 books on leadership, one in business called Business Bullseye, and one on losing our elections, what I learned running for Congress, and how we can fix our broken politics, which the US desperately needs. Jim, I feel bad even distracting you for 20 minutes from that goal, but I'm really thrilled that you can be here to talk to us about how do we build these partnerships, and how do we encourage business leaders to see early childhood development investments as a core business issue. So thank you for joining us. I'm
It's
going
my
to ask,
pleasure.
sorry, I didn't even let you respond, but I'm going to ask Jim a couple of questions, and then there will be time for you all to ask him questions. So please think about what those would be. You can post them in the chat, and Yvette will watch for those so we have time to have Jim respond to your questions. So, Jim, building business ECD partnerships requires leadership on both sides, as Diane said, thinking beyond your sector. And so, what characteristics of leadership in business are also relevant to leaders in the ECD sector who want to form partnerships with business?
Well, thanks for the question, Sarah. That's I think that gets right to the heart of probably what you're here to talk about. And I love seeing the slides just a minute ago because it really hits at the core of what I think about when I think about these relationships. And in particular, I love the leadership uh, themes that were listed, and what stuck out quite a bit for me as important were the strong communication and the relationship building. And then I think just below that was at the root of all that is fostering trust. And that is very much what relationships are about with everybody about everything, whether it's personal or business or policy. And I think as I looked at that poll, I thought, those are all, it'd be so easy just to pick every one of those things as being important, and every one of those things as being important to improve on. But the thing I really saw that I think connects uh, business leaders and ECD leaders is the aligning of goals. And I think that comes about from understanding the other side. And it's just like when any of us might go to a social event, maybe a party or a cocktail party, and you meet somebody you haven't met for the first time. And, it's so important to figure out what that connection might be that would cause you to stand there and talk for more than just a minute or two. And usually it's about listening, it's about asking questions, about understanding where did you come from, where did I come from, and what might we have in common. And that starts to build that trust. And trust can be built slowly, and you can gain and build on the momentum of that trust. But you can also lose it pretty quick. And it's hard to get back when you lose it. So that I think to keeping in mind, being authentic, being genuine, and really trying hard to understand where's this person coming from, what's important to him, and how can I connect so I can start to make that alignment of goals. We have the same goals, even though we come from I make concrete, and you're interested in brain development, or something like that. But there's a lot of connections like that. So
Um, can you talk a little bit about what advice you have for ECD leaders in finding business leaders who are willing to reach outside the sector, realize that their goals are the same, even if you use different language? What advice do you have?
yeah, there's not really like a natural way that happens, but just as businessmen can often be, Sarah, as you and I often talk about, unexpected messengers. You can find people in unexpected places and make those connections, and sometimes you might have to go to their place rather than hope that they come to yours. So, yes, invite them to your conferences. See if you can get them on your email list. Send them information. See if you can generate interest that way. That's pretty low hanging, easy, and I hate to say it, but lazy effort to do to get people involved. So maybe you need to go to a chamber of commerce meeting. That's such a thing in the U.S. and it's all over the country where businessmen meet and discuss
And all
and their
over the
mutual
world, chambers
all over the world.
all over the world.
But they discuss their mutual issues, and it's there that you can often find people that are going to be open to a conversation and open to listening maybe a little bit about where you came from and why why your concerns might match up. And before I start talking to a businessman about ECD and start talking about things like cognitive development and social emotional development and things that might just turn them into a glazed look at me, I might say workforce development. And that'll ring a bell with a businessman and they'll want to know, well, what are you talking about? And a lot of them won't realize the connection, but they will understand that workforce development to them might be an immediate problem. I need somebody in a seat right now in my business, but they also understand the long-term investment part of it. And so often you can make that connection with them. It's not, businessmen are not as shallow as y'all might think. We we do think long term often, because that's the best way to solve a problem. And so you can make those connections, finding a way to talk their language sometimes, finding a way to figure out what their interests are and how it can connect to um, a way of maybe solving some of their problems or aligning with some of their opportunities or goals. And you'll find once you start down that path, it's really not that difficult. You can make those connections pretty quick. And I would just add, you can also figure out pretty quick who those early adapters are. Because let's say there's been actually a lot of studies on this, but let me do it really simplistically. There's early adapters, there might be later adapters, there might be fence sitters that want to wait and see, and there might be people that are never going to adapt. And to some degree, do a little resource management with your own time, and don't be disappointed when you meet that never adapter, and don't beat your head against the wall trying to convince them. But go after those early adapters. Go after that guy that might be open to listening. Go after that lady that is a leader, and you pique her interest, and you know that she's willing to at least listen and start to go down the path of why these might be mutual issues and mutual opportunities for both of you.
That's great. And I'm going to ask Jim maybe one or two more questions, and then we have time for you all to ask him questions. So he's a very friendly connection here. So ask him the questions that you wish you could pose to your business community. Jim, can you tell a story about when you talk to either a policymaker or other business people about why they should care about ECD as a business issue. Just make it very clear in people's minds what that interaction looks like.
And I'm not sure this will answer your question directly, but this is a story that I'm fond of and I've used a lot. But one of our more populous states in the United States, Virginia, has probably worked has had folks work for 20 years on improving ECD policies and funding and resources in their state, and they have had miserable success with that for 20 years. And more recently, they have found, and maybe it's timing, and maybe it's luck, and maybe it's new leadership, and it's probably all three. But recently,
I'm
they've
sorry, Jim,
started.
can you say that again? You were a little muffled just for about 10 seconds. Can you just say that sentence again?
Yeah, that I was going to say what they've experienced is maybe luck, and but maybe it's new leadership, and maybe it's just an opportunity that hasn't presented itself before. But Virginia has now started to make real progress. And one of the things they did was they actually hired an organization to do a return on investment of Virginia's early childhood policies, their state policies. And they did that study and they actually showed the dollar return that might be from saving money on children repeating a grade in school, on needing additional assistance in education, on not graduating from high school, on typical problems that teenagers might have later life after early childhood, like drugs and lawlessness and so forth. So they actually did a return on investment study, and that's something that'll pique a businessman's interest. It's something that'll pique a politician's interest because they'll say, "Oh, we've always got limited dollars. We don't never have enough dollars, and we never get a good enough return on the policies we have." And that's a place where you can really pique some interest among both businessmen and politicians by kind of speaking their language. And you don't necessarily have to immediately dive into the early childhood brain development, like I said, cognitive development, social, emotional development right away. But once you get their interest, they'll start asking questions, and then you can start talking about the things that we all know are important, that are talked about in the early childhood arena, but not so much lead with that kind of stuff. So.
Mhm. One of the topics that I would very much like to do a webinar for all of you on is the whole concept of ROI, which some people love, some people don't love, but it is they're very powerful framing and numbers. And this has been done extensively in the United States and a little bit in other countries such as the UK and Australia. But the data exist in many countries to do this kind of study. So we're going to put together some material presentation webinar for all of you just on the concept and when you can use it, what it could mean, what is the methodology that could work in a variety of different countries. Because again, if you choose to use it, it can be very powerful. So that's really helpful, Jim. And I wanted to say that back to the poll, I meant to say it looked like the lowest ranked leadership quality was the confidence in reaching out beyond your ECD network to work with business, and also comfort level probably from business leaders to find early childhood leaders that they are comfortable working with, because business leaders are trusting the early childhood leaders with the resources, with their names, with reputation. And so they, as Jim said, need to build that trust. And part of the trust is having the tools, such as data, that make the case that this is something that will improve your community, your country, the business climate, and as well as the lives of children and families. Um, Let me just pause for a second and ask Yvette if there are any questions in the chat.
I'm not seeing questions in the chat, but someone made a good point about a conversation on the importance of return on investment, but SROI as well, or social return on investment. And I think um, those two sides, I suppose, of understanding the return of investing in early childhood will be an important conversation to bring forward. Um, but I guess as we wait for some questions to come through the chat, Jim, I think that it's wonderful as the CEO of your company, you're a champion for early childhood. But what is it? And I appreciated that you were talking about being able to identify where people are in being an adapter. But if someone is an adapter and they're trying to convince someone who maybe is on the fence, what might that sound like? Especially as you had pointed out, we're resource constrained, whether in our communities, but also in our organizations, in our companies, as I'm sure you can identify. So, what does that sound like, and what are possible steps people can take to try to move that conversation forward within a company?
That that's a good question, and that's the one. If we all had the answer to, we would probably wouldn't be on this conference because it's trying to make that connection. But I don't know that I have the exact answer for that beyond what I've already said about trying to speak their language, go
Mhm.
to their place. But I would say that it's certainly important to build on whatever momentum that you can gain, whatever traction you can get. And it might be small and incremental, and it may not be quick. And you may not meet somebody and he becomes a champion the next day, or you might have a conversation with somebody and she will not talk to you again for another 3 months until something rings a bell. But I think it's important that, you know, in any relationship, trust is important, and trust is built block by block slowly. And you need to be patient, and you need to continue to find ways, but not push too hard. And by the way, in listening to the last comment about social ROI, I don't know what that is. And so that I would be like the typical businessman. I would just tell you, like, be careful about I often, because I do know a fair amount about early childhood issues, I often get into using acronyms all the time that are early childhood acronyms that have no meaning to a business person. And to tell you the truth, they won't even ask what did you just say, or what does that mean, or what does that stand for. So I would just say, make sure you're, cognizant of the language you're using, the words you're using, and make those connections. And don't worry about if you're making small steps, but build on it.
Jim, I'd
Mhm.
love
Thank
to
you.
finish out our time together by your giving us a picture of what a CEO's day is like. Because one of the things that we talk about is the need to make information short and to the point and don't overwhelm people, as you've said. And you painted a picture for me that was so powerful of a CEO walking in the door and what, the first hour looks like for them, which I think is helpful for people to keep in mind as they are thinking about how to, shorten the amount of information that they provide. Can you paint us that picture?
Yeah, I'll try. I think I know the conversation you're talking about, Sarah, but even though I'm in the construction materials industry, I'm the CEO and I own the company, and I have lots of long-term goals that I should be working on every day. Most of my job is a firefighter. I walk in every day and I start putting out fires, and I just hope it doesn't last the whole day. And so it's one of those things, and maybe everybody's life is this way, but you kind of walk in and you're just hoping the place doesn't burn down for the first hour, and you get to lunch and take a break. But that's, I think, the point Sarah's probably trying to get me to make is that, you gotta be respectful of a person's time and understand that, they have maybe a lot of other things going on and they aren't always interested in what you're interested in talking about. And so be patient, pick your opportunities to have those conversations, and when you find somebody that's got some interest, take advantage of that. But don't worry when they look like they could care less, because they're probably worried about the fire burning in the other room.
And that's so vivid. Just one last question that someone posted. What do you remember what first got you interested in this topic? What first piqued your interest?
I know exactly what it was. I read, so philanthropically, I have been involved kind of all over the place for a while. And then at one point, um, this has been 25 years ago, I think. On the front page of Wall Street Journal was an article written about a charitable organization that was in my home state, that was being run with the accountability like a business. And that's how it got onto the Wall Street Journal on the front page. And it did also talk about the good work it does, and it was a 0 to 3 home visitation program that I eventually became chair of and have been on the board for a dozen years. But that's how it got my interest, because it was speaking. It was in a business newspaper, probably one of the most widely respected ones in the world. It's on the front page, and it talked about early childhood in a way I'd never seen it talked about. But by the way, and it talked about return on investment and cost benefit analysis and things like that. And that's what started it. It wasn't like I overnight was like a big fan. I'll be real honest with you. I think it was the end of the year, and as a lot of not very thoughtful people do, at the end of the year, I'm writing a couple of small checks to charities, and I think I sent, honestly, I think I sent out $1,000 or something. And that started a little bit of communication between the president and I, and then we met and we had lunch, and then I went on a home visit, and then here I am today talking to you fine folks.
Well, Jim, that is just wonderful. I wish everybody has the good fortune to have a partner like you. And I just want to say those people are in your countries. I know that 100%. I've worked with many countries to create these kinds of relationships. They are out there, and we are at the CBC are very excited to help everyone find lovely people just like Jim. So thank you so much, Jim. So glad to see you. You've been wonderful.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
it goes over to Yvette, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim. There's some great questions coming through the chat. We'll have to continue this conversation and, get some more lessons learned. So really appreciate Jim's time, and experience, and just it's so important for us to hear these success stories, and ways forward. So thanks so much. Before we transition to our next leadership conversation, I'm going to go ahead and share another poll with all of you. So let me launch that. Okay, so this one is now talking about, in order to be an effective leader, we know that we need support in order to do this. And was a question in the chat about, just needing support, needing community to support this work, particularly for ECD leaders. So the question is, leaders need many different types of support to be effective. Which of the following supports would most help you build and lead business ECD partnerships? And I believe you can choose more than one, and just give you a minute to respond to that. What support do you need? And if you don't see it here as one of your selections, go ahead and drop your needs into the chat. So your selections are capacity building and leadership development opportunities, examples of effective leadership from different countries and sectors, belonging to a community of leaders who inspire cross-sector action, mentorship, and support and resources from within your organization, and funding is another one. And of course, there are probably many other factors that you're thinking about in order to be effective. Okay, gonna go ahead and end the poll. Just a couple more seconds. Are you all seeing those results? Okay. All right, let's take a look. Most of us need capacity building and leadership development opportunities. So wonderful to have you all here. This is a part of that journey. And yes, funding, resources, and the time needed to build these partnerships. And we certainly understand that. And also belonging to a community of leaders who inspire cross-sector action. So yes, I mentioned in the chat that this conversation is a part of that, is bringing you all together to help build this community. Okay, and some mentorship, of course, and other types of support and examples. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And now hand it over to Diane, who will continue our leadership conversation with Shashank.
Hi everyone. Nice to be back with you. So hopefully Shashank will pop up on the screen in just a moment. There he is. Hello, Shashank. It's nice to have you with us.
Yeah, good morning, Diane. It's a pleasure to be the part of this webinar, and good morning to all of you. And I'm really grateful to Childhood Education International for inviting me for this webinar to share my views on leadership skills in early childhood care and development.
This is wonderful. So I'll tell you a little bit about Shashank. First of all, he is with the and I've got your title here actually, the Manager of Education and ECCD at the HCL Foundation India. HCL is a global tech company with a presence across 60 countries, delivering industry-leading capabilities centered around digital engineering, cloud, AI, powered by a broad portfolio of tech services and products. And I know that what Shashank is really invested in is development, and he's a development practitioner, but with a background that blends technology, comms, and a deep commitment to social impact and meaningful change. So we're really happy to have you with us, Shashank. So thank you. So I've got some questions for you. So we're going to chat for a little bit, and then there will be time for you all to ask Shashank some questions. So what is the HCL Foundation actually doing to advance early childhood development, Shashank?
So SCL Foundation, first of all, it's a CSR arm of SCL Tech, and SCL Foundation is divided across various flagship programs. This we are doing in order to work across the length and breadth of the country. So different flagship programs managing different geographies. So I am part of Uday, that is a flagship program under SCL Foundation, which works in the urban spaces where we have the presence of SCL Tech businesses. And our focus is more on the community development. We are working in those communities where we have inadequate facilities, or the condition is not that conducive. So we are working in those communities. We are working with urban poor and trying to break the vicious circle of poverty. So under Uday, we our focus is more on early childhood care and development. So our intervention started in 2016, where early childhood care and development was part of the education. But over the period, we realized that this is a theme which requires a separate kind of pillar, separate kind of leadership to take it forward, and also it requires more investment as compared to other thematic areas, because here you're working with the young minds, young children, whom you can nurture for the future of the country. So our model is quite collaborative, where we are working with government agencies, we are collaborating with non-government agency, non-profit organizations, and we are to which we called a convergence model. So under SL Foundation, our work is basically divided into broadly divided into four categories when we talk about early childhood care and development. So first, we are strengthening community crest centers. The community crest centers are the centers that are operating in the urban slum communities. These are low cost model, and here we are trying to work with the children who are often, like, who are the children of the migrant people. They often migrate from rural areas and they shift to urban spaces, and where the children are often ignored. They don't get the safe learning space, they don't get enough proper nutrition as well. So we are working with those children to make sure that we provide them the conducive learning environment and they are properly taken care of, because ECCD outcomes directly impacts school readiness, lifelong learning, cognitive, physical, emotional development of the children. So we have to be, investing in this sector, which requires equal attention as education, health, skill, gender, other thematics requires. So our second work is with government crest centers. In Indian context, we call Anganwadis to crest centers that we are working with, and the government Anganwadis. So these are the centers which are operated by government, and they have a scheme, central government scheme, which is called Integrated Child Development Scheme, which includes all the basic services that is required for nurturing a child, and it's quite holistic in nature, because it does not only cater to children but the pregnant, lactating mothers. At the same time, they also have a provision where the early disabilities can be identified and can refer to the right places. So we are collaborating with government. We are working and trying to convert these government Anganwadis into model Anganwadis. And here we are trying to create a source code, low cost sustainable model, which can be replicated across various geographies and which can be, scaled by government, because as a CSR,
Yes.
we are only adding a drop in the ocean, but we cannot run the welfare scheme like government. So we can present the low cost sustainable models which can be replicated by government, and which can also be replicated by other CSRs as well. And third,
It's
yeah,
Oh,
and
so
the
go ahead, go ahead.
thank you. And our third engagement is where we are trying to promote gender equitable parenting, where our focus is more on fathers. So we are trying to bring them into the shoe of a primary caregiver, along with the role of primary bread earner. And then fourth pillar here we are training the community women. We are creating a cadre of caregivers who can, work in the community and can help us make our model sustainable, so we can plan partial exit and move to different communities as well. So in
It's
nutshell, this is the work that we are doing in ECCD.
It's absolutely amazing. So HCL is the corporation. Shashank works for the HCL Foundation, and you can hear about all the amazing work that they are doing, including partnering with government. And crash centers are the early childhood, that is the terminology for the early childhood, and the Anganwadi centers as well, which is another government scheme to care for young children. Anganwadis are more like kindergartens. Is that correct, Shashank?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I have visited some of these and an ICDS program as well. So it's very interesting, but it's so comprehensive, right? When we look at the portfolio of the HCL Foundation, it's really comprehensive, and that's quite unique to hear this depth of interest in early childhood. So, how would you really describe the collective kind of leadership that you've seen in the company to make this happen? What persuaded the HCL to really open this path and for the foundation as well?
Yeah. When we talk about the leadership, I would definitely like to hear talk about the leadership of SL Foundation, because Dr. Nidhi Pundi is the Senior Vice President, Global CSR of SL Tech, and she is the Director of SL Foundation. She is a visionary leader. She has a very courageous mindset and leadership skills, where she has always promoted convergence model. So when we talk about ECCD space, we can understand that ECCD is not just about education. It is about education, it is about health, it is about gender, and it is about nutrition. So when we talk about ECC in general, we have to look into all these things in a cumulative way, so we can make a holistic change, holistic development. And what I think, if you will ask me what persuaded leadership to open this path, is basically our field level work that we have done on ground. We have learned so much that ECCD is should be like treated as a separate thematic and should be given more investment to it, because here you have to work with different kind of stakeholders and different thematics need to work together. And again, it's a field insights that we bring in to our leadership. It's important that leadership should recognize those and should be open to bring those changes into the existing intervention. So adaptability is, again, I think, is one of the most important part that I think leadership should have, and we are really fortunate that our leadership possesses that kind of skills. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So when we're really thinking about these leadership skills, right, and the mindsets, what are those that are particularly necessary when we think about sort of ECD partnerships, and how to work outside of your sphere, right? Because HCL Foundation, HCL Corporation, HCL Foundation, what is it that helps to drive leadership to think about these types of issues that are of so much concern?
Yeah, to build, in my opinion, to build effective early childhood care and development partnership, leaders need to have a unique blend of technical understanding, emotional intelligence, and I think they should have a collaborative mindset. Again, as I say, ECCD cannot be, you cannot proceed in ECCD sector with a single lens approach. You need to have a multi-dimensional approach, multiple stakeholders at the same time, multiple thematics should come together to create a holistic development. And key skills and mindsets for the leadership, I think it's empathy and cultural sensitivity, because in Indian context, India is a country which comes with a diverse background, people for diverse background. So in case if you're engaging the community, you have to understand the need of the community as well. For example, if you're developing teacher learning material, that should involve the community participation as well. Then I would say system thinking, where we believe that, again, ECCD thinks sits at the intersection where all the thematics again have to pitch in and work for the common goal. Then collaborative spirit, I would say collaborative spirit in the way that government, non-profit organizations, corporate CSR should come together, demonstrate the best practices, and these best practices should be adopted by the government. And at the same time, we have seen many CSRs, they are just trying to create something which already exists. So instead of creating and co-creating same thing, you should try to follow the best practices which are already available. That will save time, and I think we can create more impactful solution on ground. And again, adaptability, I would say, that is when leadership, like, they are like aware of the ground realities, they always prefer to adapt changes which you are bringing from the field insights. And of course the strategic vision to include, like, to work with grassroots level, and to include more and more community people in your work. We have one, I will give only one example. When we work with ECCD space, we don't call the people or children or the mothers or the fathers as our beneficiaries. We call them program participants. Just changing one terminology, it's, you feel how you are connected with them. They are not your subject, but they are with whom you are working and creating a meaningful, like, path for them.
Uh, it makes such a difference, doesn't it, when we see people as
Yeah.
people who we are working with, and that terminology, seeing people as beneficiaries, doesn't help us to build a relationship. So that's so important. So very, very good point. Thank you. We know there's been a lot of changes in India around corporate social responsibility, corporations really needing to organize to support things that are happening in the social sector. What does a CSR leadership look like in the context of what is happening in India? And then what can we factors sort of really support these CSR initiatives to work well? You know, are there challenges and barriers that remain?
So, CSR leadership in India evolved significantly after the CSR become mandatory for all the companies to work. Now they are contributing 2% of the profit they are generating for the average of 3 years profit, which is equivalent to 2%. They are contributing for the social development. So earlier it was more of a charity driven model. Before CSR also came into existence, the companies they are working in this sector, they were working in social development sector, but it was more of a charity driven model. They have never thought of creating any impactful solution which can be replicated. But once CSR came into picture and government is also had their proper lens, how what you're working, what impact you are creating on ground, you have to be, those have to be shared with all of us. Then the model has changed from charity driven model to impact focused approach. And effective CSR leaders in India, if you will talk about the effective CSR leaders in India, I think uh, alignment with national or international level indicators, for example SDG goals and national level indicators, impact level indicators are important. Then again, we are effective CSR are the one which are like building cross sector partnership, which leveraging government, NGOs, and private expertise. Then it's more important to invest in capacity building, because again, freebies, distribution of freebies are not going to solve the problem. If you are like build their capacities for both system and communities, I think that would be the more effective CSR, I think, in at least in Indian perspective. And
Mhm.
uh, if you will ask me like what factors support CSR initiative to work well, then I would simply say the legal mandate of CSR has actually, it's made it compulsory for all the like profit making companies to invest in this sector. And of course, the growing ecosystem of NGOs. Earlier, these NGOs were treated like non-profit organization. They were not treated with those kind of respect, but now they are considered as a social enterprises after the CSR came into existence. So now their people are willing, the young professionals are willing to take their career in this sector. So that is one of the most welcoming thing that I would say, which CSR has brought a lot of difference. Then increasing public private partnership collaboration has also, impacted in a positive direction. Then challenges and barrier which you have asked me, like what are the challenges and barrier which are still remain there. So I would say again that duplication of work, that many of the CSR they want to create something of their own. They don't want to follow the practices which has already been created or best practices which has already been demonstrated. And again, if I talk about early childhood care and development, people have comparatively less focus in this sector, because in this early childhood care and development you don't get results in a very short span of time. You have to invest 3 to 5 years at least, then you will get some tangible results. Otherwise you have to work in a skill, health, and other sectors which are, you know you can get the desired results in 1 or 2 years. Then again, in ECCD space we are also facing some issues like parenting has always been considered as a role which mother has to play. So through our intervention, again, we are just trying to bring gender equitable parenting, and I think these are the challenges which I think we are working toward that to overcome and make our intervention more impactful on ground.
No, it's actually amazing, and it's incredible. Though I want everybody to sort of to make sure we pay attention to this issue that it is now a legal mandate
Yeah.
from the government for businesses to really look at how they can support things that are happening in their community, within the social sector at large. Really, really, really important, because this is a trend that's beginning to happen around the world. And we see a lot of this happening because of ESG, If you don't know about ESG, please look it up. Environment, social, and governance, which is sort of something that is starting to shift the conversation in businesses about how they support various aspects, especially social causes. And another interesting thing, CSR wants to kind of create something on their own. So you do have CSR kind of units of companies that are wanting to do their own thing when we already know what needs to be done and can help them to understand where they can put forth their best efforts. So that's something that's really important for us to understand. Those of us who are on the call who are within the ECD sector, the businesses do need our support and our guidance to understand what is needed, so that they don't go creating something that's duplicative or maybe is not needed. So that's wonderful. So we're going to go to some questions. We'll see if questions are coming in to the chat. I'm going to start off with my first question for you while we're waiting for other questions to come in, which is what do you see in sort of the private sector? What do you see as just a few kind of elements of expertise in the private sector that could be really helpful within sort of ECD? Is there a kind of a mindset of thinking? You mentioned or Jim actually Sperlino mentioned accountability. Are there mindsets within the private sector that can really be brought over for us to think about in ECD, and it helps to again build a bridge between the expertise?
Sure, Deanne. So I think when we talk about the private sector organization, and if you want to make them realize the importance of early childhood care and development, I think uh, there is a need to create crash centers in each and every private organization. So when any mother is coming back from the maternity leave, she will have this possibilities of leaving her child in her office and she can work, because maternity leave is meant for only 6 months. What after that? And this is a very crucial period for a mother and a child and their bonding. So I think and again, it is important because the breastfeeding has to be shifted from a child has to be given some supplementary feeding as well after 6 months, and mother cannot leave her child behind at home and can go to the workplace. So if we set up such kind of intervention, basically I want to say it's action oriented approach if we have, and if you are providing such grace centers in the private sector organizations, I think people will definitely going to understand and see what kind of impact it is creating, because women are coming back to the workplace, and they can also take care of of their newly born child simultaneously. So I think I will not go like how business practices can impact, but these kind of solution can definitely encourage, and I think people will also understand.
Absolutely, the type of solutions and the ways that business and ECD can come together, right, to solve problems. So we have a question from somebody in Ethiopia. Says that Ethiopians are very kind people, very high in the global ranking, but when it comes to the business sector's participation in early childhood development, the rating is very low. Are there possible ways that you can think about to build that awareness of the levels of business community for child development? And that's a very big question. In a way, that's what our whole session is really in some ways about today. How do we build these bridges? But Shashank, what do you think in particular are there ways that you can think, strategies or techniques that really can help to build these bridges between these sectors?
Yeah. So when we say about the business development, I think again I would simply say that how you integrate the ECCD in businesses, that can only be done when you are demonstrating something to the business leaders and to the workforce. If we like introducing such kind of crash center in the organization, and if we are trying to connect, trying to provide them a services like lactation consultant, like they're often visiting to your office, pediatricians are visiting to the office, I think these things will definitely going to add a lot, and a lot of such business practices that can be impacted if the CSR work can also be shared with them. Most of the time business ESG is different, CSR is different. So people generally think from the ESG perspective to improve the rating of their company, but they don't see how CSR is bringing so much of effort, which we can definitely uh, you know can integrate with our business practices and can strengthen it further. So I think ESG, of course, it is linked to the business, but these kind of practices should be part of ESG to improve the ECCE investment and ECCE understanding.
Right. It's really showing business how it supports their goals, right? And we talked about that a little bit earlier as well. How do we find alignment between the goals of what's happening in early childhood development and what business needs? And really, how do we speak their language? How do we present ourselves so that they understand the importance of this to their own business goals as well? So thank you for the question. Um, Here is another question. We often hear the question of, do businesses expect the ECD benefits to flow directly to their company? And HCL clearly understands the benefits flow more broadly. How did that happen? So businesses can understand, yes, if we support ECD, it helps our company. But how do we get them to engage in this a little more broadly to see how it helps their community, society, in general?
Yeah. So, like in SCL Tech, it's a policy now that they will provide the maternity leave of 6 months, which is like a government policy mandatory for all. But here, SCL Tech leadership has taken a unique initiative where they are providing the 18 months work from home to the newly mothers who are like after completing their maternity leave, they can also avail 18 months of work from home kind of uh, setup where they can work operate from home and they don't need to come to the office. So such kind of initiative has been taken, and we are really proud of such kind of initiative which SL Foundation or SL Tech company is taking to encourage the women workforce, because we have often seen in the past many women leaders, they have been dropping out. And so I think this is something, this initiative has really encouraged women to come back to the office. And if they want to come back to the office, they have this provision of crash centers. If they want to work from home for the next 18 months, because 2 years is basically considered as the important phase for breastfeeding and all, so they can continue working from home. And of course, this has benefited SL Tech because you are retaining your good team members in your company, or they are not leaving you and they are not taking that break, which they often justify saying that I need a health break, but actually they are forced because they don't have the other option, but they forced to leave the organization after availing the maternity leave.
No, so thank you. So it's a really interesting question, right? There are things that businesses certainly can do that support children and families and align with their business goals. And what we hope will happen through that is that business leaders, business people will eventually see the benefits of supporting children and society at large. It creates an avenue for them to be able to think about the bigger question of not only what's happening in my business, but what is happening in our communities, right? Where we live, in our region, in our nation. So, Shashank, thank you so much. I think with that, we'll probably, I don't know if anybody else has a question in that.
Actually, yeah,
Oh,
just one question,
okay.
if Shashank can respond to this, is
Sure.
how has leadership within HCL Foundation been able to leverage their CSR practices from beyond charity donation to im creating greater impact? Particularly, this is, as you've been saying, this is an emerging uh, these are emerging policies across the world, right? And and if there's no maybe standard ways to measure that impact, how did leadership manage to basically elevate their CSR practices?
Yes. So I think it's not just about the leadership, it's also about your government. They also want all these work that you are doing on ground through CSR should be communicated, should be properly documented. So here the leadership also plays a very important role, from because earlier it was more, as I mentioned, was charity driven approach. Now it is impact focused approach. So things have already changed a lot. So leadership only has to follow what government has already proposed to you. So again, when we say we have moved from charity driven, because we are trying to focus more on those problems which are like, we all have a good policy at place on papers, but at times the implementation suffers because we lack uh, trained human resources on ground. So we are trying to train them, we trying to capacitate them, build their capacity, so they can also, you know, measure the impact. They can also translate all these into impact level indicators. So this is how we are transitioning from charity driven approach to impact level indicators, where we have separate team of monitoring and evaluation. Then we have consultants who are managing work from like ground. They are measuring the impact, what kind of impact the project has created. Then we are publishing it, we are sharing it with other leaders, business leaders and other CSR leaders, so the impact can be shared, and they can, if they want to follow the same practices, then government, other non-profit organization and CSR can definitely follow. And this kind of practices, they also encourages other CSR to follow the same, because when you are awarded by government or any other like international platform for your work, this motivates other CSR also to follow the same footprints.
No, thank you so much. So that right, the idea of having government involved, right, is really, really important, and how those policies are developed, and then how that impact is being not only measured, but also shared with other businesses as well through various reports and data and information. This is just a wonderful example. So, Shashank, with that, I think we probably have to wrap up your time, but it has been wonderful to have you with us. I thank you so much for your participation and for what you're doing at HCL Foundation and HCL Tech as well. So, thank you so much. And with that, I think I turn it over to Yvette.
Thank you, Kian. Thank you, Evert. Thank you, Sarah,
Actually,
for
and
Thank you for being
Shashank,
with us.
thank you.
thank you so much for being with us, Shashank. It's wonderful.
Thank
And I believe you're staying with us for the second half where we'll be having
Yeah, I
our
will be
full
here.
group discussion. So Shashank's available to us as we
Sure.
um, uh, start learning from each other. So, Diane, we're going to be transitioning to the time where everyone will have a chance to reflect upon what have been hearing in these leadership conversations. So we're going to go ahead and post that reflection question for all of you. And Diane, I am passing it on to you to help lead this portion.
Absolutely. So, we want you to have a little time to reflect on this. So, we're going to have a 5 minute break just for you to write down some of your thoughts. We've heard a lot today, and we want you to have time to kind of process that. So, if you would, we'll take a break, we'll play some music while we're taking a break. Write down the leadership qualities and actions that may be needed when you think about collaboration between the ECD and the business sectors. And you can also share these in the chat as well. So write them down, share them in the chat, and we'll come back and we'll discuss some of these. So 5 minute reflection time that will start now.
We're seeing a lot of wonderful comments coming through the chat. We'll just give people a few more moments to share, and then we'll be coming into full group, and Diane uh, supporting you in facilitating the conversation. So.
Hey. So we'll go ahead and get started back. Thank you for so much. I hope this reflection time was helpful to you. Certainly, again, there was a lot of information that we heard this morning through the two wonderful interviews with Jim Sperlino and Shashank Kare, Shashank is still here with us. So if you have questions for him, please make sure you direct those his way. But some of these comments were really interesting, and I'll point out a few, and then Yvette and Sarah will also be probably pointing out a few of their favorites as well, or ones that have particular meaning for what we're talking about in this session. So I did like this, a willingness to hear other people's points of views, the ability to communicate outcomes due to the relationship, building as much capacity through ECE business and social agency partnerships, trusting others to do what is best for our children, regardless of their title or educational background. So that really built on kind of that idea of willingness to see these long-term benefits, right? Openness. And we talked a little bit about these early adopters as well. Sometimes they are the people who can be willing to see, right, what that long-term impact can be. And then for others who may not see that, we need to take sort of steps how to convince them. How do we share with them data and information that can convince them of that long-term impact? But certainly that is one. There we go. And I'd like to share another one, the relationship building and the storytelling. Somebody had mentioned storytelling and how showing how it affects one can also, you can connect that to how it then affects many. And I thought that was a really interesting point because sometimes we think, how do we show that impact? And if you can tell a good story, even about one child, one community, and then kind of extrapolate that out to how that same story can be replicated in so many places through this support. I think that is also really interesting quality that we as leaders can help to invest in that storytelling. Good policies are always important. We need leaders who can understand that with the qualities to be able to not only shape the policies and help governments to understand why it's important to think about young children and certainly their care and education and health in those early years, but also how can they build policies that then help to shape business and help business leaders to understand the importance also of supporting children in their own context. Again, whether it's aligning with their goals or doing something good within their community. How do we make these policies speak to business in a way that they will start to take action. And you can hear in India, and very interesting that this CSR policy has actually been mandated. That's one way you can do it. But also just how do we get that? How do government work to sort of help to get this investment from business as well? So Sarah and Yvette, are you seeing any other sort of speaking to these leadership qualities that are coming through in our chat?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that we have so many wonderful leaders here with us today that has experience, and there's a lot of very, comprehensive skills and qualities coming through. I'd like to invite, if people would like to share verbally, to raise their hands, and as they consider that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Sarah if there's something that you would like
Yeah,
to
before it gets to
share.
the station, yeah, then 1 hour,
Oh,
47 minutes to Union Station.
is that you, Adefunke? Okay.
Hello. Ah.
Yeah, please raise your hand so that we can go ahead and call, and it just helps us to, okay. I
Sorry,
see,
I didn't
okay,
interpret. Sorry, it's a mistake. Thank you.
okay. I'm seeing Ivanka's hand go up, and before we get Ivanka, Sarah, did you want to say something?
No, let's go ahead. I have
Okay,
things to say, but I'd much rather hear from our audience. So let's do that.
okay. Ivanka, go ahead and unmute. Okay, wonderful.
You very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Ivanka Shalapatova, and I'm from Bulgaria. And when I heard Jim speaking, it resonated greatly with me because I am a leader for almost 30 years in the NGO sector, also in the government as a former minister. I'm still not a company corporate leader, but who knows? There is a lot of time. And I would like to say that the stories from Jim and from Shashank really resonated with some of our opportunities and challenges, I believe not only in Bulgaria, but in Eastern Europe, the Balkan region as well, especially about this need to move the mindset and the patterns of behavior of companies from pure donation thinking level to impact. And I have to say that this was the moment when I managed to attract for the NGO, not as a minister, the biggest investors, because I turned the language from please support us with the resources, know-how, material support to do you want to be a change maker in our country? Do you want to change the opportunities for our economic development and demographic or labor market boosting? Then you should invest in ECD. So in a way, I believe this shift from donation and supporting NGOs, because this is primarily what companies are expected to do, to shift their thinking into let us be change makers and let us also talk about impact for the sustainable development of societies is a game changer. Second, something that I have a very good practice with is to involve the families from the companies into the NGO work and into the ECD programs. So we started an academy for families from companies when they're expecting a child or when they have a newborn child to attend our classes. So we turn them into beneficiaries in a way so that they can meet also poor mothers, socially excluded community members, and that made them really be very passionate supporters for the company as a corporate player to invest in ECD. And last reflection from my ministerial position, how do I make the Prime Minister prioritize ECD as a policy, since it is not very well acknowledged as such? What I did was to link investing in ECD with the primary policy goals. For example, demographic priority, because our country is one of the quickest shrinking countries globally. So it was the link that I made to demography, between demography and ECD, which not many policymakers made. So in a way, being a passionate ECD leader, my takeaway from today is trust yourself, seek for support, be persistent, and believe that if we are the ones to initiate the change, no matter whether we are NGO leaders, ministers, or corporate leaders, we will succeed. And just don't give up. It takes time, it takes courage, but it's possible. Thank you.
Ivanka, that's amazing. And I want to say we want to collect these examples of partnerships that you all are already developing. So please send us an email so we can maybe interview you and write it up, because we know these are happening all over the world. And in our training, like I tell people, if there is one thing I want you to take away from this, it is to change your frame of reference with business to you are begging for money to solve your problem, to you are a partner, a valued partner with business to solve a mutual problem, which is exactly what you said. That changes the whole conversation with business. And that's just a wonderful example. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ivanka. We have Azizullah. Would you like to unmute and share your reflection?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm so glad to be here in this group, listening to wonderful leaders sharing our objectives. And in fact, it was so good to see a lot of common thoughts. Glad to see the presentation. I just wanted to share again, I'm adding to what the last comment was there. It is not about charity. It is about a partnership. We should pitch it in a way that it is a partnership. It's a win-win for everyone. I'm in a process these days to pitch in an idea to business leaders here. And basically, I'm Azizullah Beg, and I'm the CEO for Rupani Foundation. We are based out of Houston, Texas here. I'm pitching this idea to the businesses that two products, basically. One is about their contribution to the society overall, because the research says that each dollar spent in ECD has a return on invest of $6 to $12 in long run. That apart, immediate impact of that to their own businesses is huge. If you calculate that impact in terms of a satisfied personnel staff who could be, they could save a lot of money on staff retention and others. The way they could actually pitch a product I'm actually pitching in is like they could arrange in-house early learning centers for those with younger kids. Just imagine a mother, her peace of mind and her productivity level, if she knows that a kid is just next door sitting there. Perhaps she would be taking a small break to breastfeed a kid as well. So that level of productivity you can engage, and then the return on investment from that angle is huge. So we need to pitch in the idea of a partnership rather than application. It's a total partnership. It's a win-win for everyone. That way we could again switch it from the charity model to the productivity and partnership model. So thank you so much for all the wonderful presenters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Azizullah. We have Tabil Saleh. Apologize if I'm saying
Hello.
that incorrectly.
Yes, thank you. My name is, excuse me, Tabi Dektele. I'm based in Durban in South Africa. I am a founder of a foundation that is advocating for early childhood education for those ECD centers that are based in rural and peri-urban areas. And my takeaway today is that, oh, sorry, I need to turn on my video. Okay, sorry. Okay. Hi. Yes. As I was saying, so we are advocating for those ECDs that are based in rural and peri-urban areas. In South Africa, we are located in Durban. So my takeaway from today was storytelling. It's just a couple of points. One of them being storytelling. I believe that storytelling is a very good way as well of painting a picture for a business person who doesn't know what's going on. For example, whenever I share about the work that we do, I always give a picture of a house. where I speak about a foundation. I say to them, investing in early childhood education is like investing in a foundation of a house. If that house, its foundation is not very strong, few years later, or when the rainy season comes, that house is not going to sustain, it's not going to remain standing. So when we are investing in ECDs, we are basically investing in the later years of a child, of which in South Africa, for example, that last year in high school, which we call matric, is a huge year. I remember in my days, we used to come out in the newspaper, the whole nation will know if you pass or fail as long as they have your name. And usually around early January, everyone is glued to their TV screen to see who made it in this final year of high school. And in most cases, you find that children that are coming from underserved community or historically advantaged communities, they are not high up there in terms of the pass rates. And for me, because I'm also one of those who didn't even have the ECD foundation, I'm always saying we can see where the cracks are. So this is why we need the business and to partner with us in making sure that we invest in education. And then also, I guess I covered that asset base. For me, I always say that investing in these kids and the teachers and everything, it's an asset, not just, excuse me, for the family, or it's for the community, it's for the country, it's for us as South Africans to go out there and compete in a global scale, for us to dream bigger. So we are just preparing ourselves, not just for now, but for tomorrow. And lastly, to talk about the gentleman that spoke about sensitivity was, I think for our context here in South Africa, I always feel that there's a need for cultural sensitivity in ECDs because of our past. Sometimes I feel that we tend to send our children to ECDs that are far away from our homes, that are being taught in a language that is not theirs. This also creates a gap in the education system for the kids that are coming from underdeveloped, underserved communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tabu.
Thanks.
We have a couple more hands, but I just, did you want to comment, Sarah or Diane?
No, I could talk.
I know, we could
forever,
just,
but
this is amazing.
let's
We
go ahead
only
and
have a
do
few more
one more.
minutes, and so I believe it's Bokra Kadura, and if we could just keep your comments to a minute or so to share, please.
Okay, thank you very much. That was actually, this conversation and this presentation is not only crucial, it's not only necessary, but I think in this time when all the funding from the international agencies and all that is really shrinking, it's crucial. So usually regarding the business, it's very important. And I wonder, because I'm part of the Global Child Forum, which they have way ahead in driving, working with early years in businesses, driving for children's rights, but it's all the same. It's and they have a guide with the UNICEF that they've worked on that will help and support the companies to really implement children's right in businesses, which also what we're talking about. And I think we can benefit rather than starting from zero. We can see what they are doing. But the most important thing that I was talking about just a couple of days ago at the regional forum is that we as early childhood educators need to really learn how to talk business, how to turn our policies to the business and the corporations and tell them what does it mean for them, and make it, first of all, the policies translated in simple words, and ensure that we know what we're talking about. What is it that's important? I loved what you said, Diane, about we need to tell them that we're raising money for their sake. It's not a partnership, it's for their sake. we're already old enough. We're going to leave for their children, for our children. So it's for their money, for their businesses, for their profits, and for the government, for the society. So we need to change our mindset that business is not so bad if we do the cooperation, that it is, we need to learn the policy, the communication language. We need to make our policy short and geared towards people who not scientifically oriented, not educationally oriented, because the government and everybody, they still believe that this is a short-term early childhood education is a short-term priority, a long-term priority, not a short-term. And sometimes when there is war and there is this, that's a different thing. And if we're talking about everything is businesses, it's all the work and everybody is working in business. I think it's very important that early childhood education is part of this. They're part of the society. They're part of it. And I think they can do a lot if the government, there are so many examples regarding taxpayer breaks, like what they're doing in Italy, their, incentives. We just need to have champions that speak well, speak business, and make sure that they are there.
Thank you. For sure. Thank you so much, Bokra. Diane, I'm going to turn it to you as we have to wrap up this piece. If we have time for another hand, or would we like to move on?
I think we probably need to move on because I think we're at time. So
yeah, we are.
But this is absolutely wonderful, and it does it sort of speaks to the benefit of us being able to come together as a group and have these open dialogue times, right? Where we just can come on and kind of talk to each other about ideas we have, things that we know are going on within our country, our nation, to help bring business and ECD together. So we do want to create those spaces for you, and we'll talk about a space that we have in a moment where you can come together and share. So with that, I think we're almost wrapping up. So I'll turn it back to Sarah Watson, who's going to close out for us today. But thank you for those amazing comments. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Now, Yvette, are you
Actually,
going to do Mighty first
yeah.
and then I'll close it out?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let's just do another poll quickly. Sorry, I'm going to stop share. And just going to poll all of you after that wonderful conversation. Let's go ahead and look forward. After today's discussion, which leadership areas do you feel inspired to strengthen to build effective partnerships with the business sector? We know we have a lot of visionaries out there already, people with a lot of ideas who worked in this space, but perhaps have other challenges. So please share, what are you inspired by today to do next?
صافي خلصت يلا خلصت حلوين والله.
So we're hearing somebody doesn't have their mute on. Are they unmuted? If they could mute, please. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Just another few seconds for this.
Great. These are all things we can help with. So this is very encouraging to see what you're interested in.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So yeah, what came forward, the two that came forward most is understanding business priorities and language, and that was definitely a message that was reinforced in terms of being successful in creating these relationships and advocating for early childhood as a shared value for sure, and the storytelling piece, right? And then, of course, trust building is all a part of this, and the ways in which we are understanding each other and the ways in which we're able to communicate with each other. So Thank you so much for participating in that. And I know there's never enough time, as Diane was saying, like to be able to have these conversations. And so we have created a space and we are hearing all of you who are wanting a community of support. So we are certainly trying to build that for you. And we have, first of all, to continue the conversation, we know that you all still have a lot of thoughts, ideas, questions, concerns to share. We have a space on a platform called Mighty Networks, and I'll explain that to you in a minute, but there's going to be two questions posted up there as follow-up to this conversation and to continue the conversation, where we're asking you if you have any examples when leaders successfully engaged across the private and social sectors. What lessons in leadership would you highlight, the skills, qualities, and actions? Specifically social sector, because we know that we have other models outside of ECD to learn from. So if you have those examples, please share with us. And second question is, in your country or community, what factors are in place that support leaders to collaborate between the ECD and business sectors? And what are the continued challenges and barriers to that collaboration? So, and so just to share what Mighty is, and I believe we're going to drop the link to join, oops, wrong direction, in the chat. This is what that platform looks like. When you go there, there is an engage, read, share portion, and this little video is just showing, giving you an idea of what you'll see. The two questions that I just shared are there for you to go ahead and, again, join the community, ask your questions, respond to these. They're just prompts, but there might be other thoughts and questions on your mind. So please join us there. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Sarah to wrap up for us.
Wow, we are thrilled with this conversation. You all are excited about doing this, and we want to give you even more tools to help you build business ECD partnerships. Our really entire body of work for the Center for Business Champions is geared towards answering the questions that you posed, like where do I find these business leaders who will listen to me? How do I get them to work with me? How do I get a meeting with them? How do we frame the value of ECD so that business leaders
You're muted, Sarah.
So sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. So we are very excited about the conversation and the depth of thinking that you all are bringing to this work to build ECD business partnerships. Our entire body of work is aimed towards helping answer the questions that you posed. So how do I find business leaders who are willing to work with me? How do I convince them? How do I just get a meeting with them? How do I also engage them beyond money to influence policy and bigger changes that affect our whole country? And we, just to give you an example of what we have been doing, in addition to these webinars and big conversations, we've done two multi-week trainings, online trainings, one for Brazil and one for a group of leaders from 12 different countries around the world to develop their skills in building business ECD partnerships. And at our last training, our multi-country training, in our evaluation, every single person said it helped increase their skills and they would recommend the training. So we would love to do that for your country or region. So please contact us. In addition, we want to hear your stories of business ECD partnerships because we can shine a spotlight on them on our website. We always use guest speakers for all of our work from many different countries. And so we would love to see if you have a story to share with other people. And in our training, we did have one person who did not speak English. We used a translator. Saw that was a question in the comments. So we welcome people to tell their stories. And if you are not comfortable in English, we will find a way for you to tell your story of business ECD partnerships. So please email us. Yvette will handle kind of how we can build a relationship. I know a couple of people messaged me offline, and so I look forward to talking to you. And again, we know you can do this. We know it's not easy, but we are here to help you. So let me turn it back to Diane to formally close us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you to all of our participants who have shared also some of their thinking around this through polls and through chat and through a little bit of discussion. And again, we hope you join the Mighty community so that we can really start a group of people who are invested in this issue and want to connect and talk to each other. We will continue to share information with you. We'll share information about any upcoming training events. And if you think there's a way that we can help you, or if you're interested in having us work with a particular group in your nation, we can do that. Contact us. But it has been so lovely to spend time with you. This is an important issue. We must look for all sectors to come together to support young children. And we have left business out of the equation for too long. So all of us need to come together, work together, and create a world that will be much better for young children and for the future of all of us. So thank you so much. We will see you again. Thank you for spending time with us today. And everyone, take care. Thank you.